Hello everyone. I am ridiculously excited to be able to share with you the fact that we have just released our first instructional, which is huge for me because we've been having a YouTube channel now for absolutely ages, and it has been lockdown of all things that has enabled us to get to the point where we've been able to do this. So I'm really excited to be able to share with you the release of our first instructional. It is available now on our website, and in a minute I'm going to share with you a special bonus technique that's not in the instructional, but just we're going to look at one of the techniques that's there as a special application just to talk about now, so you can get a flavour for what's in it. First, I just want to tell you just a little bit about what I think this makes it special. So the instructional is on the throws of karate, and it's on Funakoshi's throws. So Funakoshi's throws, if you don't know about them, they were most commonly known for Karate-do Kyohan, the book that he published in 1935, where he had a section on the throws of karate, and it included 9 throws. And most of those throws, they're sometimes called the lost throws, have largely fallen out of the sort of general zeitgeist of most karate schools. Most schools don't practice them, they aren't particularly widely shared or taught, although they're very commonly known. And so this is my attempt to try and get more people practicing them and appreciating them, because the principles in those throws are really, really worth looking at and really worth exploring. So my goal is really simple. I want to try and give you guys the most detailed analysis of those throwing techniques presented by Gichin Funakoshi that I can. And so that's what we've done. And there's 8 hours of analysis in there for you. So what we're going to talk about now is just a fraction snippet of some of the kind of ideas that we talk about and how that kind of looks. And so I hope that if you already know quite a lot about Funakoshi's throws, there's going to be plenty of things in there for you just to kind of polish, extra ideas, extra variations. But if you are starting throwing techniques from scratch, then I equally hope that we will guide you through every single principle. The thing that I think makes this different than everything else that's been done is this is purely about detail. The goal is to give you as much detail as possible. So that is what I think makes it special, and I really, really can't wait for you all to have a look at it. There is a link down in the comment section, so please, if you're interested, go and check it out. And like I say, it's available through the website, and I really hope you enjoy it. Please put some comments down below, let me know what your thoughts are. I'd really, really love to hear it. So without further ado, we're going to have a look at some applications of one of the techniques in particular. We're going to have a look at UDE WA. UDE WA, translated, means arm ring. UDE WA was included not only in Karate-do Kyohan, but it was also featured in Funakoshi's 2 earlier works, in 1922 and 1925, when he published, first of all, Ryukyu, Kempo, Karate, and then Rentan, Goshin, Tode, Jutsu. And UDE WA, arm ring, in most modern circles would just be regarded as a version of a double leg takedown, but there are many different other applications that you can use. The original name that was used in the early 2 books was not UDE WA, it was Kusuri WA, which means chain ring. Kusari WA. So chain ring or arm ring is the interpretation of the technique. So one thing that we do in the video is we start every single technique with looking at the basic mechanics of the technique, what makes it work, and some of the issues. So we're just going to do a very quick glean in some of the ideas of this, but then we're going to focus on just some applications that you can add on top of what's discussed. So I hope you like it. So let's have a look first of all at the way that UDE WA is most commonly presented. It's most commonly presented something like this. Your opponent does some kind of double arm attack, so either a double push or a double punch. So the 2-arm attack comes in and we do this kind of motion, we come in and then we take the legs and my opponent magically falls down, happy days, and crowd goes wild. Said nobody ever, right? The problem with that technique is the way that it's originally presented is designed, in my opinion, to represent key principles, but not the main method of application. So let's break some down the principles of that. So the first thing is we see the idea as the arm comes in of some method of clearing the arms. The method that's suggested is a method of taking them up. Okay, let's look at why this is important first. If Jay is going to shoot into my legs to try and take me down, ultimately the first thing he's got to get past is my arms. That's the first line of defense he's got to avoid. So there is no scenario that he's going to be able to apply UDE WA as a double leg takedown in any capacity whilst my arms are a barrier. So the first objective of the principle of the technique is you have to clear the arms. You have to get to a scenario where my opponent can't use the arms. How do I do that? Well, there's a couple of ways, okay? The first is I could do something tactical to actually control and restrain the arm. The second would be that I can get to an advantageous angle that's going to enable me to overcome the resistance of the arm. So my opponent would have to adjust. And those are going to be the primary methods. What we see in the technique is an action of the arms coming up. However, if Jay just throws his normal punch, I can deflect in an upward direction, but I can also deflect in a sideways direction. But in both cases, even if he's just got a posture and I'm coming in and I'm just shifting, I have to clear his arm, okay? So key things that we want to change about the technique, rather than just doing it in a linear fashion as the way that it's presented, it is absolutely essential that we create an angle on our opponent. So we come to the other side. So let's use this principle. The first version I want to give you is, bearing those ideas in mind, how is the best way that I can overcome the resistance of his arms to do this technique? The best way I can do that is I can get behind him. Okay, that beats all of the methods. If I can get not only to a good angle, but I can get behind him, I totally eliminate the issues that I have around his arms. So if my opponent throws in a punch, my objective is to have a high block shift and get behind my opponent. This is the position that I then want to be able to apply my UDE WA. So from this position, I've got a couple of options, but I'm just going to do the basic first. So I want a level change. I want to drop down so that my shoulder comes level with the hips. I want to bring the hands in at either the knees or the ankles. I'm going to go knees first, shunt to bring my opponent forward. There is a myriad of techniques that I can do from here, the simplest of which is kick. I can stamp, I can apply pressure to the toes, whatever I want to do. There's loads of things, but it's a great position if I can get to it. So again, my opponent comes in, I'm going to shift into a level change. I'm going to come into the knees, and then whatever I want to do from there. From a different angle, so if we go from here. So as the opponent comes, I'm creating an angle, I've got to the outside of my opponent's arms. This is where I want to then start to do UDE WA. I don't want to just be still square on. For here, I want to get behind my opponent, level change down, and then start to bring the arms in. From here, coming through. Now I have a couple of arbitrary choices in terms of where my arm position goes. So just in this first method, as I've come to here, the first, as we've just seen, is I can drop, I can come at the knees. The advantage of that is the distance that I have to stretch is not too far. So from here, it's easy for me to have access to both knees. That's an easy place. I trap, pull slightly out. My objective isn't to pull my opponent, I just want to stop and make it difficult for my opponent to step. By pressing with the shoulder, I keep that trap in the legs, and then stop, allowing him to step forward by keeping that push. That's one method which is useful because, as I said, I don't have to reach too far. If I can get to the ankle though, I can make better use of leverage. So, same basic idea. If I get to here, if I can get to my ankle, you see I'm so low under my opponent now, it makes it laughably easy to drive forward. Again, so from here, I want to drop, keep him off balance as I transition, and then from here, just keep driving. So notice that it's important, whatever the attack is, that doesn't really matter, that I keep in those early stages disrupting his posture. There are other ways I could do that. So for example, I could come in, I can corrupt by forcing my opponent to take an initial step. Again, into here, I'm using that to block my opponent's motion, come down, and then drive forward. So I can trap the leg, then go for the ankle. Again, so in that same position, 1, 2, and then in. If I'm in a grappling scenario, this is another good way I can get to the technique. So if I can control the elbow, take it across the centre line, I can get to a side position. If I get all the way around, great, I can pull forward, take my opponent down, that's really easy. But I can use another version. So from here, as I start to pull, as my arms come round now, rather than having both coming through the leg, I'm going to make use of one on the arm, one on the leg, and I'm going to bring my opponent to this position. If I can take his hand to the floor, he's so far off balance now, it's easy to finish the rest of the job. So again, in kind of a grappling scenario, you come in, you take the leg, I've dropped low again, so that my shoulder is level with the hip, and then it's easy to drive forward, take my partner down. On the other side, so we're here, come in, take the leg, shoulder comes in at the top of the thigh, get into this position. From here, I can either drive in, or I can turn, take my partner down, depending on which direction he's pushing. So from here, in, through to that position. Then from there, drive in, or I can start to turn.
the other direction. Just drive in from there. Another thing that we can do with this technique is we can link it to some of the other techniques. So for example, one of the other throws that's featured is Tani-otoshi. Tani-otoshi's, to everybody else in the world, valley drop, as in Yoko's Nage Waza, side sacrifice throw. But for Funakoshi, Tani-otoshi is in this earlier books, later referred to as Jakutsuchi, it's what he calls reversed hammer, although he renames it. But in Karate-do Kyohan, it relates to shoulder throw. So everybody else would refer to it as Seonage, Funakoshi refers to it as Tani-otoshi. We talk about some of the reasons why that might be, but for now, Tani-otoshi shoulder throw is one of his throws. I can use UDE WA as a counter to that technique. So if Jay applies the shoulder throw, so he comes in, I want to create an initial block by jamming with my hip. I want to make sure that my elbow is tight to my body, I don't want this stretched out because that will cause me problems. So I create that initial motion. I also want to take my hand in to the palm of the back to reinforce my hip, it's that initial motion. So again, as he comes in, here, that's my initial counter, just to jam. From here, I want to keep this arm tight, I want to drop, come in, I've got access to the leg, come through, and then drive forward. So I'm using the stop as my moment to pivot, and then drop and attack the leg. So again, using that level change. So you come 1, 2, here, and then from the other side. So we come 1, 2, and just drive forward. So you can see there's a few things that we're not doing here. For example, if Jay's got his guard on, I'm not just simply going from distance, trying to drive in and get the legs, because it's too easy for him to use his arms defensively to stop me. Instead, we go to a shoulder throw, we're creating a scenario where in the close quarters fighting that we're already engaged in, we have a moment where, because the upper body has stagnated, we drop into engage in the lower body to shift off. And so in that context, I'm not doing this with my opponent's arms up, dropping, still having this issue and trying to get through. I'm creating always a position of mechanical advantage, dropping low, getting into the position I want, and then making it very, very easy for me to drive forward and complete the technique. So it's really important that when we look at any throwing technique, we always understand the conditions in which that technique is going to thrive, what's going to enable me to do it effectively, what are the key lines of resistance that my opponent is going to offer that we have to be able to overcome. If we don't understand that, we can't improve and refine our technique, and we can't then effectively integrate it into what we do. So it's no good me just understanding one version of UDE WA or Kasuri WA and just going, oh well, this is the way you do it from this one attack. The attacks that we presented here are somewhat irrelevant. What you need to think about is, irrespective of the attack, you must create the scenario and the conditions that's going to facilitate you being able to apply the technique effectively. So if, for example, it could be a push, and I've got to still get to that same scenario where I'm creating a good angle behind my opponent, dropping and coming in. If I'm going to apply this technique from a rear position as opposed to just an angled position. So it's really important that you understand that as a basic idea. Like, that's something we'll look at for every single throw. You've got to first understand the precise mechanics of the technique. That is the most important thing that you can do. So you understand how to work the basic version, and then understand the different variants and how you can use them to more effectively integrate all of the throws into your practice. So as much as there are 10 throws presented, there are dozens of variations and dozens of applications. The intent, hopefully, is that you can take the ideas that I present to you and then use them in your training, integrate them into your training, and explore a huge variety of methods. So this is just one method, looking at UDE WA for a rear position. So you can do that from a myriad of attacks. We've just chosen a selection there just to kind of give you an idea of what you can see. But you have to understand that initial pretext for the technique, how you can set it up, how you can apply it, how are you going to make it effective. And that really is the focus of what we spend an awful lot of time and an awful lot of detail trying to go into. So I hope that is just a tiny snippet of the kind of basic kind of ideas that we're going to talk about, but with a lot more detail, is something that you like and you value. I really cannot wait
for you to see the video, guys. Please go and check it out. It is on the website now, so I've put the link in the description below. Please go and have a look. And once again, thank you everybody for your support. It's been absolutely wonderful. I look forward to seeing you as always in the next video.